Hey guys, it's Ken with Hobby Harvest. I wanted to bring you out here today to show you my switchgrass progress. As you can see, it's not very tall, but that's the point. I have just mowed this. It's the time of year we get the last mowing in on the switchgrass, which seems like counterintuitive. Like, why would you cut it if you're just trying to get it to grow as tall as it can before the end of the year? And the reason for that is because this is first year switchgrass. It got planted, and about the first half of the summer, all the switchgrass really does is builds a root base. It doesn't really grow tall. Well, then what happens is all the other native grasses that are growing in here outcompete it. They get established, they're starting to choke out the switchgrass. So we come out here, we mow it about mid-July. It knocks everybody back to an even playing field, except for these native grasses are now going to just still grow at that same linear rate, where switchgrass grows exponentially. So the switchgrass is now going to grow much taller, much faster now that it has its established roots than the native grasses out here, and it'll really start to outcompete them. So we'll have to come out here again in a little while and see actually how much switchgrass I have growing out here, because it's the first year we got hit with a very bad drought. This year switchgrass is much more successful if you have a ton of rain, which we just did not have this year. But we'll see what we got. I'll have to sort of reassess at the end of the year of what I want to do with it next year. My goal may be to, if it's kind of patchy, if a lot of it didn't come up, that I may still have seed laying in here. It may be hardened seed that still has to go through the stratification process and then will come up next year. But in order to not risk that, I'll probably just frost seed into this again next year. Which would be seeding when there's about an inch of snow still on the ground in spring, late winter. That seed will then go through the stratification process. Every day it'll warm up, every night it'll cool down, and that warming, cooling day after day will put the seed through stratification. It will then be able to germinate. We'll hopefully have a nice wet spring, get all that seed really worked down into the soil. And I'll have that new seed will fill in the patchy spots that this year's switchgrass didn't fill in, and then hopefully have a real nice stand of switchgrass. Now, the other thing I can take advantage of next year is switchgrass doesn't actually come up until it's like 50-55 degrees. The soil's 50-55 degrees, not the air. These native grasses out here are going to pop up as soon as it's spring green up in like mid-April. So that grace period between spring green up and when the soil temperature is 50 to 55 degrees, I'll be able to come out here and I'll be able to spray all of these native grass growth with probably glyphosate. Might use some simazine. I got to look into exactly which chemicals are going to be ideal for me that won't hurt the switchgrass in here. But I'll do that, hopefully kill off all the native grasses, so the only thing coming up then is my switchgrass. Monitor it again. I may, if the native grasses are starting to come back faster than the switchgrass is, I'll probably do some mowing again, but I should definitely have a full stand of switchgrass with its roots established in here by this time next year, so that fall next year I should have a decent stand of switchgrass. I'm hoping for anything from 4 to 8 feet high. I'm about a little over 6 foot tall, so if you can imagine switchgrass being 8 foot up here, obviously it won't be as thick the higher up, but a deer only stands this tall. So you can imagine a deer being out here, this wall of switchgrass up here, this makes them feel like this little plot here, this little food plot, is just a safe, secure little piece of candy for them to come and grab before they go fill up on an egg field all night. And that's the whole point of putting in a food plot, is deer need that little piece of candy. If you give it to them, they'll come to that piece of candy, a food plot. That's your chance to get a shot on them before dark, before they then head off to the egg field for the night. You don't want them feeding on your food plot 24/7, because they will just eat it down to nothing on you. You want to just get them there just for that window to get a shot on them, and then send them off to the egg fields after dark, where they can fill up on your neighbor's crops instead of your own. But just like a quick review of like the point of switchgrass, like I said, it keeps them sort of safe, secure in here. This right here off the camera is an egg field right here. This is alfalfa field this year. Couple 100 yards that way we have corn, and a little this way we have soybeans. So I know that like directly back here is a pretty big bedding area for the deer. So my goal of this plot is they'll come out of that bedding area, they're going to hit this plot, they're going to feel safe and secure to come out here in the daylight because of this switchgrass stand, and then they'll head off into the egg fields at night. That's the plan. We'll see if it works. You never know. Where the deer are moving this time of year is not where they're going to be moving in the fall, so it's hard to get a judge on what they're going to be doing, but this is going to get planted in a fall forage mix here in a couple of weeks. When that starts coming up, we'll start to develop that fall movement. The bucks are still in velvet. Once they get hard-horned, they'll be more willing to come into some of this thicker growth that's back here. Right now they're avoiding it. I have a couple bucks on camera, but nothing too crazy, because this is just too thick out here and they don't want to risk bumping their antlers on it. So they're hanging out somewhere a lot more open right now where it's cool, something that's got a lot of high, probably mature trees with low undergrowth, so that they can stay cool yet not bump their antlers into anything. But we're getting to that transitional period time of year where they're going to start moving into what you'll actually start recognizing as fall movements. You really start patterning deer coming up here in maybe a month or two. So hope this kind of explains the reason for switchgrass and like shows you the progress I'm making. It's a lot of work. It's a lot harder to grow than just throwing seed down like this buckwheat and just letting it grow. A lot more maintenance, a lot more babysitting it, but if it does grow and become what you want it to, it really helps you out and really creates this safe, secure little piece of candy here for the deer to come in and get a shot on them before dark.